We're always told to just do the right thing. But what happens when you're in a situation where it's not at all clear what the right thing even is? Today, we're not just going to talk about business ethics in some abstract way. Nope, we're actually going to build a practical toolkit. I'm going to give you 3 powerful lenses you can use to look at any tough decision, so you can go from feeling stuck to feeling clear. All right, let's jump right in.
So, let's start with a real-world, really tough dilemma. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, people were stranded, they were desperate, and some of them broke into stores to get food and water. So, was that unethical? I mean, there's no easy yes or no answer, right? And that's exactly why we need a better way to think through these things. This is where our toolkit is going to come in handy.
To even begin to analyze a scenario like that one, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page. We need to agree on our terms. So our first step here is to lay a really solid foundation. What do we actually mean when we say the word ethics?
At its heart, ethics is the study of what we ought to do. It's not just about our gut feelings or, what's popular at the moment. It's about building a consistent framework for our actions, one that's based on real principles like rights, obligations, and basic fairness.
It's also super important to understand that ethics isn't exactly the same thing as law or morals, even though they all overlap a lot. The law, well, that sets the formal black and white rules you can be punished for breaking. Morals, on the other hand, are often those absolute personal beliefs you hold. Ethics is that space in between, where we really reason about the standards that should guide us.
Now, you can look at ethics in 2 main ways. The first is descriptive ethics. Think of this like an anthropologist, just observing and describing what a society already believes is right or wrong. But for our toolkit, we're focusing on normative ethics. This is more like being an architect. It's about designing the frameworks that tell us what we should do. It's prescriptive.
And that brings us right to the core of our toolkit. We're going to unpack 3 huge ethical theories from Western philosophy. The best way to think about them is as different lenses. You can pop each one on to examine an ethical problem from a totally different angle.
Okay, our first lens is called virtue ethics. This one goes way back to thinkers like Aristotle, and it's not about rules or outcomes at all. It's all about character. The main question it asks is pretty simple. What action will help me become a better, more virtuous person?
Aristotle's big idea here was something he called the golden mean. He said that a virtue isn't an extreme. It's the perfect balance point right in the middle of 2 vices. So, for example, the virtue of courage. It's the sweet spot right between being a coward on one end and being totally reckless on the other.
So let's apply this lens to our big question about Katrina. Looking through the virtue lens, we don't ask, is stealing wrong? Instead, we ask something like, what would a person of true compassion, justice, and courage do when faced with starving neighbors? See how the focus shifts from the act itself to the character of the person acting?
Now, for our second lens, we're going to take a completely different approach. This is deontology, and its biggest champion was Immanuel Kant. This framework isn't about character, it's all about duty. It's about rules. It basically argues that some actions are just flat out right or wrong, and the consequences don't matter. This quote really gets to the heart of what Kant was talking about. It's part of his famous categorical imperative, and it basically means we have to treat people as valuable in and of themselves, not just as tools or a mere means to get what we want. So if we apply this lens to Katrina, a deontologist would ask a really different question. They'd ask, could we turn the act of stealing when you're in need into a universal law, one that everyone, everywhere, could follow? I mean, if everybody did it, would the whole idea of property just fall apart? The focus here is purely on whether the act itself is morally sound. In our third and final lens, utilitarianism shifts our focus again, this time entirely to the outcome. It's what's called a consequentialist theory, which is a fancy way of saying that the morality of an action is judged only by its results. The goal is simple: create the most good for the most people. This is the famous principle of utility. It's a really powerful and, honestly, pretty intuitive idea. It's like you're doing a kind of moral math. You add up all the good an action causes, subtract all the bad, and the most ethical choice is the one that gives you the highest positive score for everyone involved. So, looking at Katrina through this lens, we basically have to do a calculation. We have to weigh the incredible suffering of hundreds of desperate people against the financial loss of one, or maybe a few, store owners. Does the action of breaking in produce the greatest good for the greatest number? It forces you into a really tough, pragmatic analysis of the consequences.
Okay, let's just pause for a second and put this all together. Virtue ethics focuses on character, deontology focuses on rules, and utilitarianism focuses on consequences. Each one starts from a very different place and asks a very different question. Seeing them all side by side like this really makes it clear how they each give you a unique way to look at a problem.
So, we've got our lenses for individual choices: character, rules, consequences. But what about businesses? A company is really just a bunch of individuals working together. So how do these ethical ideas scale up to the level of a whole organization?
A really great tool for thinking about this is Carroll's Pyramid of Corporate Social Responsibility. It shows a company's responsibilities in layers. The foundation, the absolute base, is economic. A company has to be profitable to survive. On top of that, it has to be legal and obey the law. Then comes the ethical layer, to do what's right and fair. And right at the very top is philanthropic responsibility, to actively be a good corporate citizen.
But you might notice that so far our lenses have been very focused on the individual or the company as this single thing. To really round out our toolkit, we need a lens that puts the community front and center. And for that, we can turn to the powerful African philosophy of Ubuntu.
This simple phrase is so profound, and it captures the entire essence of Ubuntu. It's this idea that our identity, our humanity, our well-being, it's all fundamentally tied to the community. You can't be a fully realized person all by yourself. And the core ideas all flow from that one concept. We're all interconnected. We have a collective duty to each other, and we have to offer mutual support. The ethical focus here is always on actions that strengthen the community and honor the dignity of every single person in it. It's just a powerful reminder that ethics can be deeply, deeply relational.
So we filled our toolkit. We have lenses that focus on our character, our duties, our impact, and our community. But having the tools is one thing. How do we actually pull them out and put them to use when it really counts?
And this right here, this is the most important takeaway. The goal is not to pick your favorite theory and just stick with it. The goal is to use them all as lenses. By looking at a tough problem through each one, virtue, duty, consequences, community, you start to see different angles, different stakeholders, and different moral priorities. It doesn't give you a magic, easy answer, but it leads to a much more thoughtful, conscious, and ultimately defensible decision. I'll leave you with this thought from Warren Buffett. The stakes for making good ethical decisions are incredibly high, for you and for any business. Having a toolkit like this to navigate the gray areas, it's not just some academic exercise. It's one of the most practical, powerful skills you can possibly build. So the next time you face a tough choice, ask yourself, which lens will I look through first? Thanks for watching.